Hello and welcome back to another episode of Taking Control of Cancer, the podcast brought to you by the North East London Cancer Alliance. I'm Steve Bland and this is part 2 of my chat with Toby Freeman, who is the founder and CEO of the Robin Cancer Trust. In the first episode, Toby and I talked all about his experience of losing his brother and the impact that had on him, and also why that inspired him and his family to set up the Robin Cancer Trust. We didn't really get too much into the work of that because that is the focus of this episode. We're going to be talking about early diagnosis and knowing your body and the importance of spotting cancer early or as early as possible. We're also joined by another guest who's going to talk to us from a North East London Cancer Alliance perspective all about the work going on right here in North London. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this episode. Okay, so as promised, we've got another episode with Toby. Hello, Toby, again.
Great to see you.
And if you have listened to the first episode with Toby, Toby, actually just give us a bit of a reminder, for those who maybe haven't listened to the first episode, for those maybe who have, but it might have been last week, your charity, a bit of just a very broad story.
So my family set up the Robin Cancer Trust, which is the UK's germ cell cancer charity, covering mainly testicular and ovarian cancers, but also all germ cell cancers, the cells that make up the reproductive organs. And because we lost my brother, Rob, when he was very young to a rare form of testicular cancer. He had a grapefruit-sized tumour in his chest, in his medius sternum, that was pushing on his heart and lungs, and it was caught very late, even though he was healthy, very health conscious. And we thought, if this can happen to him, it can happen to anyone, and that was our ethos for starting the charity.
And you do plenty of work in, promoting early detection, early identification of symptoms, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, we do awareness, education, and support. So lots of school work, going out into schools. We've got some amazing funding to go to the Midlands, Essex, and the North East. So we're out on the ground, reaching people in the curriculum, talking bollocks, which I've said now, and reminding people you're not overreacting. So we do it in a really engaging and fun way for young people, very active on social media as well. And then we also offer support, so free support to anyone going through it, cancer packs sent out via the hospitals.
And at the end of the previous episode, we talked about a box that you've brought with you, which we're going to unveil in a moment. But before we do that, Toby, we have another guest with us today. Obi Onya. Obi, you're the Programme Manager for Prevention, Awareness and Screening for the North East London Cancer Alliance. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. How are we doing?
Yeah, we're really good, thank you. Just give us a bit of a broad kind of background of what your job involves.
So, without going into too much detail, so the North East London Cancer Alliance, we've kind of got 3 arms, is what we would say. We have first arm, which is early diagnosis, second arm is diagnosis and treatment, and third arm is personalised care. So each of those really are kind of areas in which we focus on, but my area consists mainly within that early diagnosis arm. So it's really about catching and identifying cancer as early as possible. 2 parts really, what we call timely presentation. So that's understanding the signs and symptoms of cancer, and screening, which is encouraging people within the North East London Borough to attend their screening programmes, of which we've got 3 national screening programmes: bowel, breast and cervical. So my role as a programme manager in that very long title that you just said is really managing those programmes of work, which are all aimed at really those 2 arms: timely presentation and screening.
And it's a heck of a job, isn't it, Obi? Because if we get the early detection right and we get people into the system early, it makes everything else in the pathway that much easier.
I mean, just listening to your story, Toby, the fantastic work you're doing, by the way, it's catching it early, and that's the kind of main thing. Unfortunately, Robin was caught quite late, but we have, I think the stats that I was reading is 98.8% chance if it's caught at stage 1 and stage 2. So we're really, really driving young people, especially, to kind of really catch it early.
Just one for both of you. What do you think are the kind of barriers to getting that early detection for young people particularly?
I think it's a little bit of complacency as young people. We're young. There's myths about, it's cancer's kind of older people. It's not going to happen to us. We're young, fit and healthy. But it's not always the case. So we don't do our check-in. We may not kind of look at our health as much as we can do. We might smoke, we might drink, we might not take care of our weight. So there's all of these contributing factors, but it's really just that myth of I'm young, fit and healthy. It's not going to happen to me and you may just ignore signs and symptoms that you may come across. And if you're not educated, if you don't have that education or that knowledge really, then yeah, you're not going to detect it.
And that's kind of what we talked about with your brother a little bit, isn't it? Some of those things.
Absolutely, and I totally agree with that, and just add the embarrassment factor.
Absolutely.
And the stigma of finding something, ignoring it, and then the hurdle of getting a young person into a GP's office as well. Just taking that proactive first step rather than head down in the sand, it'll go away.
A hurdle that you're both trying to tackle. Let's open this box, right? So at the end of the last episode, we talked about a box that Toby brought with him. It's a very large box, Toby. You've not seen what's in this box.
I haven't. It is a very large box.
It's a very large box. Toby, do you want to just explain?
I do, yes.
What's in your box?
Well, it was a fun trip up here on the train carrying this, and they nearly fell out at one point. So this year, I've been given the okay from my very understanding wife and my amazing team to run around like a giant pair of testicles, basically.
Okay.
So I'm combining my two great loves, running and testicles. And this is my big ballsy challenge. So this year I'm running 500 kilometres, and probably more than that, dressed as a giant ball bag to raise awareness, reduce embarrassment, make people laugh at me because I'm okay with that, but start the real conversations. Because we believe at the Robbin Cancer Trust that humour is one of the best ways to reach young men. If we can break them down, and we've seen it time and time again, we do it at school talks. No one likes a school talk from a cancer charity, but we walk in, big testicles on our head, get the PE teacher to check their testicles, big prosthetics, in front of the class. Everyone laughs, but they get the serious message behind it. We do this in festivals, go out into mass participation events and reach young people. They have a laugh, you connect with them, bit of banter, and then you can have a serious message. So my idea is to run around the country doing that, and I'll be doing that at Brighton Marathon, London Marathon, running across Hadrian's Wall with a testicular cancer survivor, which is going to be amazing, and then running 100 kilometres dressed as this, which won't translate in a podcast.
It won't, but let's have a look. I'm interested to know what Obi makes.
I'm very, very interested.
Building suspense.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Don't know if I can get those on camera. There we go.
Now, just to explain, this is, what is it, like 4 or 5 feet in height,
Yeah,
a couple of feet across.
3 wide.
You've even got the hairs on there as well.
Hairs that jingle as I run.
It is a giant ball sack.
And that's what we do when we do what we do. We've got the charity on there, we've got how to donate, we've got our hashtag so people can find us. I'm just going to try and put it on without knocking anything over. Glasses have come off.
I'm actually going to ask Toby to do the rest
comfy.
of this. I want Toby to do the rest of this podcast in his outfit.
Absolutely.
I think that's important.
That's absolutely fine. It does pull up a little bit, but I'll give it my best.
I've run a few marathons, Toby, and I'm struggling to see how that's going to help you run 26.2 miles.
It's going to be grueling. Like I say, I am a runner, but this is something I've never done before. It weighs about 9 kilograms, so it's cut with very light foam. It's very airy for some aeration, but I feel bad for the people running past me or next to me because I could accidentally teabag.
Well, I'm doing it as well, and I'm actually possibly going to be in a costume as well, but maybe I won't commit to that just yet. But I fully expect you to run past me with a 9 kilogram ball bag.
Well, I launched this at the National Running Show, and I managed 200 metres at world record pace. So that was, my hat did come off, but other than that, it was perfectly good.
But there is a serious side, and you talked about the embarrassment, didn't you? And I guess stuff like this, you were getting rid of stigmas around certain cancers.
Absolutely. So I've had this long theory that part of what we do is we do the silly things that make people laugh at us. What we never want to do is create embarrassment, make people embarrassed or think we're laughing at them. So if we can make ourselves the butt of the joke by running around as a giant testicle, people know that we're okay with having that silly conversation. We're going, yes, laugh at me, and then listen to what I'm going to have to say because there's a serious message behind it.
Absolutely.
So as long as the laugh is at us, then we can break down that stigma, start that conversation, because humour is one of the great connectors. We have love, fear, we all laugh, right, as well. And it's one of those human experiences. So if we can do that, then all the important things can happen afterwards. And you're never going to forget this. That's my point. It's got the big hashtag on the back. You can find us. You won't forget it.
We're never going to forget this.
So what sort of so when you've kind of gone out and you've kind of spoken, what is the general reaction? Is the general reaction laugh, ha ha, bit funny, and then we go into that serious conversation?
Absolutely.
Or
I probably can't tell you what I've been called at certain events when I've got a big bag around my head, but people resonate with it. They find it engaging, and that's the important thing. At the very least, they take a sticker, they take a card. All of those have QR codes.
Sure.
General awareness is exactly that, right? Mass appeal. How do we get this out to so many people? We do it in a way that we're at festivals, we're at Reading. People want stickers because it's funny, but then when they want to, they can find all the important information at the back of it.
And they have no clue what is until you start speaking to them. So what in terms of so the only way if I saw that I wouldn't really essentially know why this guy's in a giant ball sack.
Absolutely.
Well, okay. Interesting.
And then when people they make jokes, you go, well, I lost my brother, and they're like, oh, okay, that connects with me on a human level because I know young people, and you're like, this is why I do what I do. Take a card. We go to the school talks. Not everyone's going to go away and check themselves, but you're going to remember if you're having a fumble 3 years later and you find something, that hashtag, that person that came in, and you'll be able to find the information you need that might prompt you to go to the doctors at that point. So awareness is this slow burn, isn't it? It's a cultural change, that generational change that happens over time.
And it's what we talked about in other episodes, and I'm sure you guys talk about all the time, the personalised care, that we're talking a lot more in terms of the whole cancer pathway, personalised care, but I think around early detection, it's how to communicate with different people in different ways, isn't it? And sometimes that kind of shock factor or the comedy element, might get you to an audience that maybe another way wouldn't.
100%. I mean, we are constantly trying to find ways, certainly within early diagnosis, to kind of reach our target audience. So, for example, we've got a campaign which is called It's Not a Game. And with that campaign, we're using sport as a hook to kind of engage the men within North East London. So we've kind of advertised in kind of areas that we expect men to be at: sports clubs, pubs, gyms, to kind of really focus on particular areas that we're trying to really kind of get engagement in. So it's amazing. I might take that idea.
The other thing with this, sorry Steve, just to say, is this has mass appeal, but it's not going to appeal to everyone. So part of our charity's remit is awareness for all, right? So this isn't going to resonate with certain people and certain cultures, certain communities. So we also need to make sure that the serious message gets Wayne through in a way that resonates with them,
of course,
that is co-created with them, right? That's really important.
Can you pull your microphone a smidge closer? Sorry, your ball sack is so big that you can't sit close enough to your microphone.
Having a very serious conversation with the ball bag here.
But just touching on that kind of personalised communication, we've talked in this podcast so many times about the diversity in this part of London. So many different languages, so much. Isn't it Romanian? There's no word for screening or something like that. There's so many challenges that you guys have got. So that personalised communication, changing it for, changing the campaign content, but changing actually, just physically the way that you communicate is massive for you guys, isn't it?
It is, and I guess one of the ways we overcome that is we kind of link in and engage with those communities we're trying to reach, and we kind of get those communities to support us in developing some of these campaigns. So we do a lot of co-production workshops whereby we go into the community and say, look, this is an important topic. How do we what's the best way of engaging with you? What's the best way in community? How would you want to see these materials? We often use I'm sure you've seen the kind of leaflets, pictures, and are they the best way to engage? Is it important? So we kind of use them to kind of tell us and really help us co-create some of these messages that we're delivering, whether it be in different languages, different formats, different styles. So we regularly do that.
You guys are not just testicular cancer, are they? You've talked about, is it ovarian as well?
Yes.
How do you flip the messaging when you're talking about ovarian?
It's a really interesting difference between the two campaigns. So for the testicular, we find very much, let's go big, brash, laugh, connect, and it's all about, here are the signs and symptoms, here is specifically what to do, go to the doctor. Whereas we've noticed with the ovarian, peer-to-peer conversations are already happening. There's not an embarrassment factor to break down, because I would say, as guys, as you go through puberty, everything becomes about banter in a bad way, right? Your voice drops, everyone starts taking the mick. Who's got the first pubes? Blah, blah, blah. Spots, jokey. Everything's about rinsing you and making you feel embarrassed about your body. Whereas actually, we've learned from our community that as they're going through puberty, the peer-to-peer support is already happening. And there's a lot of those communications already happening. So rather than about, oh, don't be embarrassed, it's no, you know your body, because the symptoms are vaguer as well. You can't check. We're telling guys to check themselves once a month, go to your doctor. With the ovarian, it's here are some very vague symptoms, but here's when to be concerned. And it's much more about empowerment. You need to go to the doctor and you can have this information, and you can go for second opinions and you can take someone with you. It's more about empowerment than it is embarrassment. And that's a really interesting societal thing that we've identified.
Because some of the work that you guys do, we talked to Karen Hobbs in a previous episode, all about the You Need to Know campaign, I think,
That's right.
isn't it, with womb and ovarian cancers?
That's right, yeah. So, I mean, that was a great episode, by the way, and just hearing kind of Karen's story, not journey. It was, I think, it's very, very different dynamic in terms of communication. We done a campaign very, very recently, which is, I would say, still ongoing, where we actually took over a nail salon. We were trying to find areas, places where, we can sit down and have those very frank, important conversations, but not in big, loud, bold way like you would to say a group of men. So we took over a nail salon in Hackney, actually, and we found that was actually quite successful, because a nail salon, I mean, I don't go and get my nails done regularly, but I know it's somewhere that you sit and it's quiet.
Regularly or at all?
You sit, it's quiet, and you can kind of have those open and kind of honest conversations. And so that You Need to Know campaign, it's one that's been going on, I think we're going into its third year now. It's really great, focusing on womb and ovarian and cervical cancer.
But plenty more campaigns that you guys have got. Give us a bit of a flavour of some of the work that you guys do.
So want to talk about young people, so we've got a couple of campaigns which are kind of really targeting that young. So we're doing one at the moment, which is with a charity called Copperfield. That's not necessarily about ovarian or testicular cancer, but it's more about breast cancer and kind of identifying the signs and symptoms of breast cancer early. As I said earlier on, it's a kind of this myth that it can only happen to older people, older white women, but there's data and research out there that says that it's actually happening to young people, and the incidence is actually increasing purely because they're not checking, and it's being diagnosed at a late stage, whereas if it can be caught at that early stage, then you have more chance of survival. So that's a kind of quite a significant campaign, as I said, working with a charity called Copperfield.
You mentioned very briefly, when you mentioned the nail salon, it's different to how you talk to a group of men. We were talking in the previous episode, I'd be interested in your sort of take on this. How do you connect with a group of men? We had Kevin on in one of the first episodes we did, talking about prostate cancer and the groups that he's set up. How do you think, as a young guy, how do you think we should be talking about things to ourselves, to each other, to our peers, to our friends?
I just think we just need to normalise the conversation. We need to, the more we speak about it, the more it becomes normal. That's one. I think that we listen to our children. I haven't got to this yet, but we do have a number of campaigns where we're actually going into schools. I know, Toby, you said you're going into schools, so I know you're going to talk to Cats at some point, which is also another charity that we work with. But our children, if my daughter came in and said, Dad, you need to kind of check your balls, or kind of check your breasts, because breast cancer can happen to men, I would definitely pay attention. So I think those are kind of two key ways: children and normalising it. Those are probably one of my go-tos.
Busting the myths, isn't it, Toby? I did a lot of work with Dame Deborah James on bowel cancer, and she was big on busting the myths around bowel cancer. She was 35 when she was diagnosed. A vegetarian who ran a lot, young female, and we always say, the kind of perception of bowel cancer is that it's men who drink too much red wine and eat too much red meat, and it's guys in their 50s and 60s and above, and it's breaking down that those kind of myths where a cancer might be more common to a certain group, but that doesn't mean we can ignore the symptoms.
Absolutely, and I think there's a fine line between scaremongering and educating, which is, in the how you put this information across. And I think it's about leveraging education. We have everyone in one spot, right? A vast majority of people are in the curriculum. I think we should be focusing on that to normalise these conversations. There needs to be a bigger push to these holistic messages of, health, alcohol, smoking, vaping, checking your lumps, checking your skin, all of these risk factors that we need to educate in a way that resonates with young people, because there's no point just putting it across in a PowerPoint presentation and getting the teacher to do it. It can, be amazing charities and groups out there, and just really focusing on that. And also social media plays such a big part. We need more positive role models focusing on giving these good health messages and really, again, putting it away in a way that young people want to resonate with, because technology changes so quickly. People don't Google things anymore. They TikTok them. How many charities aren't on TikTok?
I Google stuff still. I'm in my 40s.
We're all of that generation.
I Google stuff still. How does social media play a part in your kind of communication with young people?
It's big. We've got a kind of huge social media campaign happening at the moment. In a way, so there's a Copperfield campaign that I just spoke about. That was actually co-created by young people. We went out and we spoke to young people and said, look, how do we get this message across? I've got a 15-year-old daughter, and she's always on her phone sending voice notes and hi, this and this, and that's kind of what the campaign is. We've got a kind of number of short monologues where people, influencers as we like to call them, hero talent, are actually going out. They're sending messages to their friends talking about the importance of checking your breasts, and that's actually a campaign that's going wide on social media at the moment, kind of using avenues like TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram Reels to kind of really resonate and connect in a way that young people like to digest the information, and we're just kind of trying to leverage that, really.
It's brilliant though, isn't it? Because I think back to when go back to Rachel was diagnosed in 2016. They set their podcast up, You Mean the Big C. Going back even further to when your brother died. The picture was so different, wasn't it, in terms of how we communicated about cancer? There wasn't really a social media community. Maybe I just didn't see it if it was there, but I think it was fairly linear in the way we communicated the symptoms of a certain cancer.
Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, it was when we talked about this on pamphlets and leaflets, wasn't it? You were handed something, whereas now you can go and find a community on TikTok. Like, the amount of people in the community that I talk to, and they're like, the peer-to-peer support I get is through talking to people on Instagram, through TikTok, and you can't put a price on that for knowledge sharing, both when you're in the community but also for the awareness. It's absolutely key. You've got to reach these people how they want to be reached.
I was just going to say, social media makes it real. So many people putting their own stories on. 20 years ago, unless you knew someone that was experiencing, cancer, etc., you wouldn't really see it. Now you're seeing it a lot more. It's out there. It's there for you to see. So it actually makes it real.
But I think one of the big things social media has done is take away maybe some of the fear there as well, because I think a lot of the people on social media, they're focused on the living bit as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
And I think that probably takes away some of the fear, whereas maybe 20, 30 years ago, cancer equaled death, didn't it? And social media has been massive, I think, in changing the perception of what cancer is.
Absolutely. It was the C word, wasn't it? Or just not talked about. It was just someone died of old age, and you're like, okay, well, what about all the young people that are getting this? And it normalises absolutely everything. People are aware of the different types of cancer. It's not just cancer, is it? It's all the different types of cancer in there. I think the charities and organisation, it sounds like doing absolutely amazing work in all the co-creation, the projects. I think that's absolutely the way to do it, because it is about shifting that power, right?
That's it. Exactly that.
But that's massive, isn't it? Because I think, like I said, we've talked about some of these these campaigns in previous episodes. But if you guys just sat in a room here by Stratford train station, if you sat in a meeting room, like NHS loves meetings, don't they? You all sit there in a meeting and you think, right, we're going to do all these campaigns, and you just come up with a plan and you roll them all out. That's just not going to hit the mark, is it?
No.
What you guys I think are really good at, and you've kind of alluded to it a little bit, is going out and actually understanding what it is that a community needs and how best to get into that community.
Yeah, exactly. We also do a lot of work on like behavioural change as well, and really trying to understand what kind of makes people take action, and that's what we kind of want. We don't want people to just kind of be aware and receive information. We need people to actually take action. And,
you don't want that passive.
Exactly, yeah. And that's kind of one of our key aims also.
So what are let's talk about some advice, and if someone's listening and maybe they're in their early 20s and they maybe they're similar age to what your brother was when he was diagnosed, and they think I'm young, I'm fit, I'm healthy, cancer's not, that's not in my world. What are some of the pieces of advice for them? What are some of the messages that we want to give those people?
I mean, the first one is listen to your body. You know it best.
Absolutely.
And then check your body. What parts you can. Check it as best as you can. We can check for lumps, swelling, pain. Don't avoid any of these things. If they're happening, anything unusual, don't be embarrassed. You won't be the first person it's ever happened to. You can always talk to an organisation or reach out to someone and sense check yourself. I think that's fine, because I think we're quite good as organisations at prompting people to go to the doctors, and that's okay. You don't need to wait until everything's happened. I found something, I'm a bit concerned. Just a message from a charity can always help. Prompt you to go to the doctors, and go to your doctors. 2 minutes checking yourself, 5 minutes sitting in the doctors, because that's all you'll get with them, but that's fine. For them to check you and have that peace of mind, it's worth its weight in gold.
Because
Cancer is unlikely,
yeah,
but it could happen.
That's what I was going to say. You probably will be fine.
Yeah.
But just get it checked.
Absolutely.
I would echo that. And also, we've spoken about it before, but it's just having those open conversations with peers, friends, family, and just say, look, no, it's something different. Thoughts. It's just really, as I said, normalising those conversations, really.
Can I just add, knowing your family history as well?
Oh, yes,
Mega
of course.
important.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
huge.
Yeah.
We touched on it with Kevin on the prostate cancer, that he had no idea that some history, I think it was involving breast cancer, was related to prostate cancer. A lot of these things are related, aren't they? And understanding your family, that's a massive one.
Yeah, so understanding your family. There are specific genes as well. BRCA gene, I believe, which is just an acronym for breast cancer. But having that specific gene mutation, would increase the risk of you having breast cancer. I think that the data and ovarian, the data is staggering. I think it's up to like 85% chance of breast cancer with that gene. I think it's 45 or so for ovarian. So knowing that as well is really important.
What are the common cancers for young people? What are the sort of things we're talking about when we talk about young people? I read a definition of young people as under 39, which I was a little bit upset about, being in my early to mid 40s.
So if we're talking all cancers, I think the leaderboard for kind of cancers under 5, we're looking at leukemia. Then once we go from kind of birth to kind of 14 years old, then it goes to kind of central nervous system tumours. I think third on that list then is lymphomas, which is around about 15 years to 24. And then again, after that, we're then talking about germ cell tumours, so kind of the testicular tumours, for example, and that's kind of the 24 to kind of the 39 age. Toby, correct me if I'm wrong on that. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of where we are in terms of kind of the most common cancers.
I don't know if I've ever really heard the term germ cell tumour. Because I think I said in the first episode, you probably wouldn't understand it if you don't work in the NHS. Maybe if even people in the NHS might not know what it is. Do you want to just give a bit of an explanation as to what we're talking about?
So germ cells are the cells that make up the reproductive organs, so testicular and ovarian. But in rare cases like my brother, those cells can be rogue, described by his doctors as it just never made its way down to his testicle. So he had a cell sitting in his chest, for 23 years, and then it just started replicating, filled up a lot of space because unfortunately there's quite a lot of room in there. So there are other parts, extragonadal, the gonads being the reproductive organs, extragonadal germ cell tumours, which is what Rob had. So
Extragonadal, is that an actual term?
yeah. So just found outside of, in the stomach, in the brain, in the
testicular cancer in his chest.
So he had a testicular cancer regimen on chemo. Because it was testicular cells. So they were just treating it like a testicular cancer. He had no primary, it wasn't a metastases. It was just late stage because it had started in his chest and then spread elsewhere.
Whenever I hear kind of stories of very rare cancers, I just... First people I feel sorry for are GPs, primary care, because I think it must be so difficult to figure that one out, because he had a cough, I think you said, didn't
Yes, it was pushing on his chest. And the first real symptom was A&E through a blood clot, because a bit of the tumour had broken off. So that was his first. But he did ignore signs and symptoms. So when we talk about general signs and symptoms, night sweats, obviously a huge one for blood cancers as well. You know, not waking up sweaty, waking up full drenched, having to change the sheet, sleep on a towel sort of sweats. Chronic fatigue, which he ignored, which obviously is a sign that something's wrong in your body. And then it's a sudden change in bowel habits. But we have a history of IBS. So that was just, I was saying in the previous episode, he just compartmentalised these to stress and to family history, and things got missed because, GPs would probably see one of these in a career, if that.
Yeah.
So how much work do you guys do with primary care to make, they don't, it's very difficult for them to spot these cancers early, isn't it?
Yeah.
In a lot of cases. But do you guys work with GPs as well? We've had GPs on in previous episodes talking about some of the work that you guys have done.
Yeah, I mean, I don't directly. We have, I guess, under our early diagnosis arm, we have a program which is dedicated essentially really to primary care. So we do a lot of work with engaging with all of our PCNs. We have what we call PCN facilitators, which again look at kind of stats, data, and see how best we can kind of really engage with GPs and what needs to be done, any support that they may need. Yeah, and there's also our Cancer Academy for GPs, which offers training for early diagnosis of cancer. So there's a lot of work that we currently do, but it's a challenge really. It's just such a mammoth of a task.
Are you getting too hot yet?
It's quite warm in here, but I'm fine. I can be a sweaty
Do you want to
soul
take
bag.
it? Do you want to take it off?
I've got to run a marathon in it. I can sit in a room. It's training.
The costume that I'm probably running in is going to be a giant poo emoji. I'm running it for the Barbe Fund, and I'm getting a bit of an idea actually of what what it might be, like a 9 kilogram poo.
Is that how much it weighs? 9 kilograms?
Well, that's what that weighs.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's what that weighs. We haven't got our poo costumes quite nailed down yet. But
I know a guy, so.
Well, no, I actually would like to know who's made your balls.
I will happily shout it out if I'm allowed to.
Yeah, go on.
Jellyhead Studios. He's absolutely amazing. He creates a lot of the charity and mascot. He's just fallen into this line of work. He's brilliant at it.
Wow,
carved a niche for himself. But a lot of the marathon mascots are by Jellyhead Studios.
It's quite a line of work.
You'll give me a discount on my next one for that.
Obi, there's one more programme that I wanted to just talk to you about, the sponsorship of Hackney Wick.
Yes. So Hackney Wick is a grassroots football team based actually in northeast London. We got in touch with the owner, Bobby Kasanga, who's just doing some brilliant work, and he's got a number of teams within Hackney. So what we've done is we kind of help sponsor their kits. So their kits all kind of have our "It's Not a Game" logo. Talking about cancer is important, and really what that does is, with the football matches every week, we've got parents, we've got spectators that attend. So again, it just opens up that conversation. Their kids are going home with their kits, parents, family members are seeing that and saying, okay, what's this? Looking into it more. So it's almost like another chain to kind of get that engagement started.
And sometimes, as you said, Toby, at the start, it is just that little flicker, isn't it? That start of a conversation, that interest to maybe find out more, to then Google it or go on TikTok or whatever it might be for your demographic. But it's that initial little moment.
All of this just starts conversations.
That's it.
Who's the sponsor? Oh, let's have a look at that. I'm bored watching a match. Perhaps, start Googling it, you look at it, you find out some information, one thing leads to another. That's why awareness is so key. It's just this slow burn, but we just need to make sure we're reaching absolutely everyone. That's the key, in the way they want to be reached.
Well, I reckon there's maybe the start of a nice little relationship here as well. We could talk about something with the Alliance and Robbing Cancer Trust, because I think, Toby, I mean, I spent a long time with you today, and the work you guys do is absolutely phenomenal. And I always think, having been through something myself, is it's amazing to to pull so much good out of something so awful, and so what you're doing is incredible. So thank you so much for coming along and sharing today, and it's been fantastic.
I really appreciate it. I just apologise to Obi for the first podcast he's been on. He's had to sit opposite me dressed like this.
Well, Obi, thank you so much as well, because I think, as I keep saying in these episodes, the work that you guys do as an alliance, you've got massive challenges, and I imagine when it comes to early diagnosis and screening, we haven't really touched on screening too much, but I imagine it must feel like a massive challenge. Like you're climbing a mountain sometimes. It is. While it might, we talked about this in the first episode, perhaps you can't fix it all, you can't make it all better, but no doubt that the work you're doing is making a massive impact.
Absolutely. Certainly trying. But yeah, no, thank you for having me, Steve, and it's been a pleasure. Toby, all the work that you're doing is absolutely amazing, and I look forward to seeing and hearing more. Might catch you at a festival.
Absolutely. Look forward to it. You won't miss me.
You definitely won't miss it. Thanks both.